Hi, I'm Professor Bryan Horrigan, and it's my privilege to be the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Law at Monash University at the commencement of its 60th anniversary year, and I'm here with Thalia, who has really embraced our clinical guarantee. Welcome, Thalia.
Hi, Bryan.
Thalia has completed 2 professional practice electives in our clinical legal education program here at Monash Law, which gives our students an opportunity to work with real clients on real legal issues while earning credit towards their degree. In our experience, having done this now at Monash Law for almost 50 years, clinical legal education is both an educational and personally transformational experience that helps students shape what they want to do with their law degree and their careers. It's a practical, clinically focused opportunity to work in our in-house clinics or with our partners and provide legal services to members of the community who wouldn't otherwise have access to justice. Students can also choose to work with one of our industry partners where they might find themselves in Parliament, in the Ombudsman's office, working in-house with a company or a community legal agency or with a law firm. Throughout the year, Monash Law Clinics welcomes more than 700 Monash Law students. That enables us to provide a wide range of comprehensive legal services to our clients and also immeasurable benefits to our students. So Thalia, I'm keen to hear about your experience with Monash Law Clinics and the impact they've had on your studies with Monash Law and your own thoughts about your career. So first of all, can you tell me a little bit, and our audience a little bit, about where you're at with your studies and what you're doing with Monash Law Clinics right now?
Sure. So I have finished up with my law degree and I am almost finished with my arts degree. I just have one more semester left. And I'm currently working at the Monash Law Clinics as a client services officer.
Now cast your mind back, Thalia, to the beginning of your studies. What did you know about Monash Law Clinics when you chose to study law with us?
Actually, I didn't know that Monash had a clinical program when I was choosing my university. I knew that Monash was a good university for law and I knew that it had a wide range of electives. So that was kind of my incentive for choosing Monash. I liked the ability to have the freedom to explore my passions in law. But yeah, I didn't know that Monash had a clinical program when I started.
So when did it come on your radar?
I think it would have been around my second or third year when I was beginning to have a think about electives. I had gotten an email about Monash's clinical guarantee and I thought it sounded like a fabulous opportunity. I think I was really excited by the idea of doing something practical, actually working at a legal clinic and working with lawyers and giving advice. I thought that was a really exciting way to use one of my electives.
Okay. And did you talk to any clinicians or any students who'd done clinics as part of your sort of consideration process, or did that come later?
No, I actually talked to one of my friends who was a couple years ahead of me. She had done a placement at Monash Law Clinics and she loved it. She couldn't recommend it highly enough.
So word of mouth was an important part of wanting to do it. Okay. Did you think at that point, as you started to get into the clinical program and possibilities, that you'd have the opportunity to assist members of the public on legal matters before even your own studies were completed? You know, what did you think studying law with Monash would look like as you started to think about the clinical dimension as well?
Yeah, well, it makes sense to me that we do have this opportunity as law students to have this practical experience because it's kind of hard to understand what it looks like to be a lawyer without getting to actually see it firsthand. So I wasn't really surprised at the idea of placement, but when I actually started my clinical program, that's kind of when it really set in that these are real people, our clients, and I had to actually give them legal advice. And that's when it was kind of surprising to me that our clients would trust us to give them legal advice. I still felt kind of young and inexperienced as a law student, but our clients really trusted us to give them sound legal advice and keep their best interests at heart. So that was definitely an interesting experience.
And of course, all of our students have support systems around them because you've got trained supervisors, you've got other students. Nobody's ever left to just do it on their own. And indeed, our obligations to our clients are such, and the legal requirements are such that you have to have people who are under supervision and properly trained.
Yeah.
But I suppose this is also in the values of law and in the values of Monash law because access to justice can sound like such an abstract concept. But as you've just helped our audience to see, Thalia, we're doing something here which is real for access to justice and social and economic justice, because we're dealing with the multitudes of people out there in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, worldwide, who do not have enough money to afford a lawyer and who do not qualify for the limited amounts of publicly funded legal aid. So unless they get access via a community legal centre or a pro bono lawyer who's prepared to do it, and there's limits on those resources, we're doing something which fills a vital public need while providing training for our students, while also having impact in the community, while also giving students transferable skills that they can use in their careers, while also having a transformational experience that can shape what kind of jobs they might want to do.
Absolutely.
But perhaps I'm getting ahead of the questions, so we'll go back to some of the questions. How did the clinical electives fit into your studies? Was it like just taking another unit, or did it literally take you out of your classroom and maybe even out of your comfort zone?
Definitely out of my comfort zone. In terms of how my clinical program fit into my unit, so as I said before, I'm also doing an arts degree, and I've taken a lot of gender studies electives in my arts degree and learnt a lot about feminist theory. So I did 2 family law placements with the clinical program, and I felt like the things that I had learnt in my other degree really complemented my knowledge of the legal system, because as I'm sure you know, when you're giving legal advice, you're not just talking about the law. You need to talk about all facets of the client's life, and gender dynamics really come into family law and impact the way that a client can take on your legal advice and follow it through. So I felt like my double degree really complemented my experience at the clinics.
So in your case, you're telling us that there are insights and maybe even some knowledge from either your law degree or the other degree that were very helpful in the clinics that you were in.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. And I also, going back to what you said about going outside of my comfort zone, I came to the clinics in law student mode. I kind of thought we would learn how to be a lawyer. I kind of thought our supervisors would give us lectures and maybe teach us how to become a lawyer. But the clinics is very much learn by doing and learn by observing. And I had a client appointment my first day of clinic, and obviously my supervisor was very supportive and took me through the whole process, what it would look like, what I would need to do. But it's really you who's leading the client appointment, and that was unlike any of the other units I'd done before.
So not quite being thrown in the deep end because there's support.
Definitely.
We at least gave you some floaties.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But, it's on you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Under supervision, but it's on you.
Your client is relying on you, and as unsure and maybe a little bit nervous as I felt, my client needed me to put on a confident and assuring kind of front. So I very quickly learned how to do that for my clients, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to learn how to do that with the support of my supervisor before I entered the legal industry on my own.
You did 2 clinical electives, and many students do more than one because they enjoy it and they choose to use their electives that way. You did 1 clinical elective internally at Monash University Law Chambers with our Monash Law Clinics there, and then 1 externally with one of our partner organisations at a community legal centre. Let's start with the internal one. What was that clinic and what did it involve? Yeah,
so I did it's called the FLAP program. It stands for Family Law Assistance Program. That's the internal clinic at the Monash Law Clinics. This is a family law clinic, but it kind of deals with a lot of generalist matters. So not only parenting, but also divorce, property settlements, family violence, intervention orders. And as you were saying before, Monash Law Clinics is a community legal centre. So a lot of the clients that came to us for advice had all sorts of other vulnerabilities. They were dealing with mental health, experiencing family violence, financially struggling. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience about the intersection of our community and also kind of learning how to not only provide legal advice, but to support and advocate for our clients to make the best decisions for themselves.
What you're describing there, Thalia, sounds like that you're getting a direct exposure to the reality that people with legal problems might also have a range of other impacting problems. They could be financial distress. There could be mental health, psychological issues. There might be a need for social work support to support the whole family. There could be a range of other things in play, which lawyers have to deal with, even though it's not legal expertise. It's why we have some multidisciplinary clinics.
Yeah.
But you're describing for our audience and for our potential clinical students something that's integral about, you're dealing with people, and people can have a range of things going on for them in their lives and in their families.
Yeah. We actually worked a lot with the Monash University Social Work Clinic. It was very much a partnership between us to provide the best support we could to our clients.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I may, Thalia, I may take the opportunity of you reflecting on the Family Law Assistance Program to tell one of my favourite stories about experiences with clinic, which was with the FLAP clinic, and to share it with you and our audience. I'm able to tell this now because it's many years since the people involved were around, and you'll see why at the end. So I made a visit early on as Dean to the Family Law Assistance Program at Monash Law Clinics at Clayton, and I observed the students working together on matters under a supervising solicitor. And my attention was drawn to sort of like a wall where various things had been pinned up. And I noticed that there was a card written in different coloured crayon and which had various photos. And it was a card from a young boy who was the youngest member of a family that a group of our students working with a supervisor had reunited, including making use of the International Convention on Abduction of Children. So sometimes when people think about professional practice and FLAP and they think about, I'm in Clayton, they think, it's just about local kind of stuff. But it could be local kind of stuff that involves a mix of international law, national law, which the Family Law Act is, sometimes local law, Victorian law, and it can involve clients who may be here or may be elsewhere. And it can involve interacting with bodies overseas, such as the bodies you'd need to work with in something under the International Convention. And what the young boy in the family had written was a thank you letter with photos of himself and his sisters, thanking the students who'd worked on his matter. And he had indicated photos of everybody, included photos, including of himself, and he had written in the different coloured crayons, "Thank you for saving my family."
Oh, wow.
Now, there are people who go through life and never get the chance to have that kind of impact on someone's life in such a dramatic way. There are lawyers who may not get to have that kind of impact, depending on what kind of work they do, and especially if they do or don't do pro bono work. But for our students to have that experience and to have that kind of reaction and to see for real that when we talk about social justice and access to justice, we're talking about impact on people and it's about people.
Yeah.
And the conclusion to that story is that for 5 years I couldn't tell that story when I spoke about the clinics. Why? Because the older sister in that family, in part because of the experience of interacting with us, decided she wanted to be a lawyer. And she came to Monash Law and has now finished. But out of respect for her, I did not tell that story while she was with us. But I can tell you, and I can share with you, Thalia, that story as a singular illustration of why we do this.
That's fantastic.
And why the students get a transformational experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I feel as though the line of questions must continue. So was there a moment when it really sank in for you that this wasn't just a theoretical classroom, but you were dealing with real people who were experiencing real issues?
Yeah, from my very first day of clinic. As I said, I had a client appointment on that first day, and I can still remember that appointment very clearly in my mind because it was the client was just really going through such a hard time in her life. She was very stressed out, very overwhelmed, and being family law, as I'm sure you can understand, there are so many emotions involved and so many different people involved. And the way that she opened up to me was just really raw and really honest. And I felt like she really trusted me to help her in some way. And it's like you were saying, we really have a big impact on our clients' lives. The advice that we give them helps them make huge life decisions that can even affect the composition of their family or how that looks going forward. And I think, just from that very first appointment, I kind of realised how important the role of a lawyer is, especially in a community legal centre.
And sometimes managing the emotions of a client and the reactions of a client and the lawyer's own internal emotions and reactions in front of the client can be a struggle, even for experienced lawyers. And we're not naturally trained as lawyers about all the other sort of skill sets you might need to be, to deal with the situation. So was there anything that prepared you or helped you in that moment deal with these non-legal things in a context where you needed, to be available to your client and to recognise and understand what they're going through and to be of use to them as a lawyer, even though you couldn't assist them in the other dimensions?
Yeah, well, in that moment, it was definitely my supervisor. We took a break from the appointment and we really debriefed, and I told her how kind of affected I was by this client's story. It really was like such a big moment for me to hear all that stuff that she was telling me. And my supervisor was really supportive and really encouraging. And she kind of emphasized to me, this is why we do this. And all this means for you now, like going forward, is that you try your very best to give her the advice that she needs and that she can take in right now. And that's all you can do. Your role as a lawyer is limited to that, but it can make the biggest difference in someone's life. Okay. And I will also say, the other students in the clinic, they really are your biggest support system. They understand what it's like to be going through the clinic, and they understand what it's like to have clients like these. So you build a really strong connection with the other students who are doing clinic, and it's just a wonderful thing to go through together, supporting each other, encouraging each other.
So it sounds like an individually and collectively transformational and transformative experience for you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your second clinical experience, which was outside of doing it within internally. How did your second clinical elective differ from your first? Was it more challenging being outside of the Monash Law faculty setting in a community legal centre?
So my second placement was the Laughter Clinic. Laughter stands for Lawyer Assisted Family Dispute Resolution. So it was another family law clinic. This one was in partnership with Relationships Australia. This clinic focused on mediation as a process of dispute resolution. So what this basically means is that a client would come to us, they're having a dispute with the other party about, it was always a parenting matter. So mediation is an opportunity for our clients to come together just between themselves and work on their issues, find out a way that they can work together, resolve their dispute, or if not resolve it, just find a way to work around it so that they can come to an agreement that's in the best interest of their child. So lawyers can come in handy in this type of process because they're there to be an advocate for their client, while keeping in mind mediation is like a joint dispute resolution process between the two parties. The lawyer can really support and uplift their client to keep in mind their own priorities and what's in the best interest of their child. And I feel like for family law especially, when there are so many complex emotions and power imbalances in play sometimes, that can be really beneficial. So it was a clinic that was all about that sort of process, and it was really interesting because we know a lot about the court system and how traumatic it can be sometimes, costly in time and money, but also there's a huge emotional cost to family law. So it was interesting to learn more about mediation as a process of dispute resolution and how it can have huge benefits as opposed to court.
So I think this is also a very useful insight you're sharing, Thalia, for our audience, because I imagine if you say to some law students, maybe even many, dispute resolution, the first thing that pops into their head is commercial litigation.
Yeah.
And what you're sharing with us is that there are actually different forms of dispute resolution and in different areas of law. So dispute resolution is core because there are always disputes in law. That's what the court system is there to deal with.
Yeah.
So whether it's family law mediation or commercial arbitration or commercial adjudication or adjudication before the family law courts and so on. This is a broad spectrum of human experience that law touches in terms of experience in dispute resolution, and it sounds like you're able to build upon your experience in the first family law related unit to bring it into the dispute resolution domain of family law in the second elective.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a sort of there's a link there as well.
From start to finish, kind of, yeah.
What impact did the Community Legal Centre setting have in your studies, being exposed to that? What did you bring back that made you think differently about studying law and being in the university context?
Yeah, well, the Community Legal Centre specifically, as I've mentioned before, all our clients face some sort of vulnerability in their life, and I really valued the experience I had being able to help the clients that came to our centre because they really had nowhere else to go. And I think I took away from that experience my passion for increasing access to justice, my knowledge of the hurdles that there are out there for people to access the legal system. And it's kind of really ignited my passion to work in the community sector going forward in my career.
So Thalia, what would your advice be to students planning a professional practice elective or indeed any clinical elective? Mm-hmm. What would you recommend they do to get the most out of the experience?
Yes, well, firstly, I would absolutely recommend that all students do a clinical placement elective. Even make room for two, because it's very common after you've done one, you'll probably want to do another. I would also suggest to have a think about what areas you're passionate about. The good thing about the Monash clinical program is there's lots of different placements to choose. So if you're particularly interested in how the health sector intersects with law or law and technology, even if you're not interested in client-facing work, but you're more interested in the research, the policy, there's lots of different clinical programs to choose from. And I think selecting one that's within the areas that you're passionate about will really help you get excited about placement and excited about the future. So I would definitely say to have a look at what's on offer and think about what placement excites you the most.
So from listening to you talk about your experiences, Thalia, it sounds as though they're great things to do for their own sake because of what it exposes you to. Law is for real, you're seeing the impact it has on people, you're learning, you're experiencing. But it sounds also from your experience that it's also shaping your own thoughts about what kind of career you might want to have in your case. And You're thinking about community legal sector and family law, and so it informs that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I suppose the other thing that you're sharing with us through your answers to all of these questions is that third dimension is you're getting transferable skills and experiences that you can translate into a career context. Mm-hmm. Okay, so good to do. Something useful.
Yeah.
But something that also informs your own thought process about what you want to do with your life and your career.
Yeah, I feel like all law students understand the importance of getting some experience, not only to put on your CV, but also to explore your areas of interest and the career you might want to go into. So it's definitely beneficial on like a personal level, but the experience of placement also kind of introduces you to a whole different aspect of law where you're giving to the community and you're giving to your client. And I think it's very beneficial in that way as well. So not only do you have the personal gain, but it's also giving back to the community and finding the benefits from that.
And I suppose on that last point that you mentioned, Thalia, there's a strong connection within the legal profession because of its commitment to rule of law, access to justice and pro bono legal services to those who most need it and can least afford it. That there's a direct connection between what the legal profession in all of its different arms values and what students are doing when they're doing a legal clinic, which is for people who most need it and who most are unable to afford it.
Yeah, exactly.
How has your experience with the Monash Law Clinics impacted your preparation for life and careers after graduating from law? What do you want to pursue as a career now?
I think one of the most beneficial things that I got from the clinical placement that I will carry with me into my future, whatever career I decide to go into, is that experience of seeing my supervisors be lawyers. I've done 2 placements and I had 3 supervisors during that. And each of those supervisors had a different way of being a lawyer. And I really valued the opportunity to pick like a little something from each of them, what I really valued in their style of lawyering, and kind of imposing that onto myself, like learning from them what I think a good lawyer should act like. And I think seeing them be a lawyer will really inform the way that I want to carry myself going forward. And the experience of working in a community legal centre has really just cemented in me that I do want to go into the community sector, and family law would be a wonderful area to go into. I already know I'm so passionate about that from my experience at the clinic, so that would be amazing. But I would also value the opportunity to explore different passions, and I feel like I'm well equipped with I've had experience dealing with clients, I've had experience with file management. I feel like I'm well equipped to take those skills from placement and transpose them into my career.
So there's a confidence you're describing for the next phase of doing it for real, having had this exposure to doing it for real.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other thing that I take from your comments is that other additional benefit for you and for students who do clinics, which is this role modelling of what it means to be a lawyer generally, but as you say, of the different lawyering styles and models there are, and that, lawyers have personalities, lawyers have different styles, there are different needs, there are different kinds of clients. So the importance through the clinical program of that kind of modelling, of seeing real life lawyers, supervisors, clinicians, other lawyers, and being able to learn from that modelling as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, Thalia, that's been a great wide-ranging discussion, and thank you so much for your willingness to share your insights and lessons for the benefit of our audience watching this, who might be from different constituencies. There might be fellow students who are doing other clinics who are interested in what you're sharing with us about your clinical experiences. There could be school students or others thinking of coming to Monash Law who might be in the university system wondering what it's like to be doing legal clinics. After all, there are medical clinics and there are education clinics and there are social work clinics, but legal clinics may be an area yet to be opened up for that audience. There may be those who are looking at our graduating students as potential employees, wondering what our program is like. So there's various audiences for what we're doing here today. So thank you so much for being willing to share your experience. It's great that you're now both still working with us and also doing other things, and that you've had a great experience in the clinics, and I wish you the very best for your future career.
Thanks, Bryan.
Thanks, Thalia.